All right, and welcome to the first podcast of the preseason assessment for Prometheus Season 2, Season of the Elders. Today, my co-host is Collin. Collin, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I am doing well. And I actually said it or technically because we're recording the podcast a little out of order, but I said it for Andrew already. But Collin is clearly a Season 1 alumni. Hopefully, everyone has seen Season 1.
And a fan favorite. If that's a spoiler, we'll cut it out.
Yeah, no, yes, he was also a fan favorite, which I'm sure he will wear that medal proudly.
Always.
So this is our first podcast in which we are going to be talking about each of the players in the game, kind of just like a small little thing on who they are and how we think they might do in this upcoming season. So we're going to just kick it right off with Antonio. So there are three players in this game, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think there are three players to watch out for in this upcoming season. I have high hopes for them. Antonio is one of them. Antonio is 22 years old. He is from Washington, D.C. He is a grad student right now for public policy. I don't know what that is, but it sounds very official. He says that he can be very out there. He's very competitive. He started to get more involved with physical activities, or as he referred to it, I believe, sports ball, which he's currently, I believe, playing kickball. There's something really interesting about him that I really like. I think he's very sharp. I think he could be very fun, very social. Something that was very interesting is his regular college, what's that called? Your regular degree. That's not grad school. He was doing
Undergraduate degree?
Undergraduate. Oh my God. Idiot. Anyway, his undergraduate degree was dealing with a lot of environmental stuff, and he's allergic to grass, which I thought was very interesting. And another tidbit is that he likes to bake. It makes him feel very well connected to his family, I believe his grandmother specifically. And without any spoilers, as we'll talk in probably the next podcast, one of the other contestants actually is a baker. So we'll see if maybe in the game they can come together on the baking.
Bake up an alliance. Ooh.
Yeah, bake up an alliance. But so yeah, what did you think about Antonio?
I really enjoyed his interview. Funny, right out the gate, he kind of was very self-aware. His interview of the ones I'm critiquing is on the longer end, and he did say he talks too much. I personally didn't think he talked too much because everything he was saying made a lot of sense, and he was just sharing a lot about his gameplay. But I like that he was kind of like aware of that. However, I did get a sense that he, with talking too much, as someone who loves to talk too much, I was kind of picking up on things. And there was times where you were asking a question and you could tell when you weren't even finished the question, he already had the answer in his head, which is good, but also bad, because that means when you start thinking, you stop listening. And it actually, he gets caught in that a little bit when you talk about the types of challenges, and he with memory, puzzle, and physical. And then he even was like, wait, what was the first one? Because he was already thinking about the other one. So it tripped him up there. So I'm wondering if that is going to be something that, comes back to bite him a little bit. If you are talking too much, you're not listening, and that is something that I tend to do. So I might be projecting my own bias onto him, which is bad, but that is just something I did notice in the interview, that just tiny little things that I wanted to pick out of these players. But I believe they mentioned that they're new to the Facebook org community, which is cool. I don't have any reference outside the Facebook org community, so I don't know how it is on Discord, or I know there's some on Twitter. So
Instagram, the list goes on.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if they played a mini before, because all the examples were kind of long term. So it's definitely a different style of gameplay, because you don't have days and hours to kind of fend for yourself. You have minutes and seconds. So it is a bit different. liked that he complimented the graphics of the show. So already won me over. I was like, great, you're gonna win. And but something that I noticed in the examples that they gave, they're very calculated in how they strategically think, and that is really good. And a great strategy, because you need to think 4 or 5 votes ahead. But again, going back to the mini style, it's really hard to do that in 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 5 minutes. Can you really have the time to plan all the steps when it's going at lightning speed? So it'll be interesting to see if they can adjust that style of gameplay to kind of a mini, because they have high strategic mind, and it seems like a great social aspect as well. So if they can kind of fit that in to the weekend, 16 hours, then the game's yours.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of those observations you made were absolutely great. Something that I never even quite thought of, and sometimes I got to be honest, when you're doing 8 of these interviews in a day, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, one after another, sometimes certain parts of my brain do shut off and I don't maybe pick up on those details. So I actually love that you had mentioned that. It's very interesting. If I'm being completely honest, I could potentially see Antonio being a more strategic version of you. Not to say that you're not strategic, but I think for you though, your massive strength is your social game. And I don't think anyone can say that's not true. It's definitely true. I think he might have a little bit more balance on that. I feel, and I hope people really enjoy talking to him, and I hope the audience enjoys his game.
Oh, absolutely. I think they will. And, in the traits that you asked, like a self-reflection assignment, leader, and then instead of emotional, logical, and then passive or aggressive, there was a pause, and they did have to think about that one for a while. And eventually kind of came up with like aggressive ? So I'm excited to see where that goes. And yes, I do think maybe a more level-headed in terms of gameplay. Maybe if they can do a level-headed version of me, that would carry them farther. Because they do seem to have that kind of chattiness, which is great, but you kind of have to remember that you're playing a game and you need to think to vote people out.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and anyone who or says memory is their worst challenge, which almost is everybody, I sympathize with as well. So
we had some people that said memory was their strength.
Well, we'll get to that. I have comments for that.
But yeah, so let's move on to our next player. We have Ariana. Right. Ariana's 26 years old. She is a UPS worker. I believe she handles packaging. She likes to write poetry. She loves reality competition, specifically Big Brother. Ugh. She really hopes to play an honest game. She's never played one of these games before, and she thinks that she might be more of a reserved player. Now, the very interesting thing about Ariana is I kind of know her a little bit outside of the org world, because she essentially is a friend of a friend, but she can sometimes be very, very reserved and very shy on one side, but I've seen her online presence, whether it be on her, Facebook stories, Instagram stories, or her YouTube channel. And there's definitely is a much different side to her online. So maybe we will see that online personality just be that, a personality in this show. And because she can have a very offbeat sort of goofy side and can be very social. I think the thing with Ariana is if she doesn't exactly play that persona, my guess is she's going to need to potentially warm up to people before she really kicks off her social game. But those are just my notes on her. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. The interview, I mean, right off the bat, she said, I write poetry and I'm chill. And I was like, that is the vibe and I'm into it. But, having that chill, laid back attitude, sometimes it can help you because, but it can also hurt you if you need to make connections and you're not the one to reach out. If you're letting people come to you, it can kind of be a double-edged sword. But like you said, she has this kind of online personality. So if that comes out, you know, she might be able to kind of tackle and kind of control the game. Also, what I kind of found funny is, so, you know, right off the bat, the interview is very relaxed. You know, she's giving very calm answers. She's thinking about things. It's, you know, it's very, like I said, her chill vibe. But then when you ask what kind of player she will be, and when you got to drama king and queen, she rolled her eyes and was like, that one. And I was like, oh, that's unexpected. Like, yes, she mentioned her YouTube channel and energy, but the way she was delivering herself and the body language she had didn't allude that she was going to be this kind of troublemaker or, someone who's really going to like play up a blind side or play up a betrayal or play, you know what I mean? So it was interesting that she immediately was like, ha ha ha, yes, that one. And I was like, oh, so maybe there's a bite that might come out and that would be exciting. So we'll see if, very relaxed and chilled until things don't go her way. And then boom, it's like a light switch. I think that would be maybe a strategy. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, it could also be, this is something that I discussed in another interview before or another podcast before, but like sometimes people just don't interview well, you know, and I know obviously part of the game is a social game. So you gotta know how to talk to many different people, but I think it's the mindset going into it. Like, this is an interview. This isn't a game. This isn't a normal social interaction. So it could be that, but it'd be very interesting if she came into the game with chill vibes and left with the most dramatic exit. I don't know if that'll happen, or who knows, maybe there is no dramatic exit. She makes it to the end. My one thing is, and I think there is a possible path for her to the end, I just wonder if she will potentially either be in the know or make the right strategic moves to make that winning game possible.
Yeah.
Because this season, we definitely have more of a balance between heroes, villains, and anti-heroes. Yeah. So very interested in seeing what everyone else can bring to the table, and including Ariana for this season.
Yeah, and she's new to this, and she's self-proclaimed to be a follower, emotional and passive aggressive. I was like, me too. But I mean, being new, I think, you know, maybe the first day being more of a follower is not a bad thing. I mean, Anna in season 1, not that she was a follower, but definitely kind of had to kind of learn really quick how this thing worked. And so I think being a follower in that aspect can help, kind of letting the more veteran players kind of take control. Don't get your hands too dirty that first day, kind of observe. And then maybe that second day, then go for it. It's a good strategy to have as a new player, potentially, without making a big splash right away.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to move on to our next person. We have Ben. Ben is very interesting. Very interesting. We'll leave it at that one.
Can I just say one thing before you go? I wrote Gen Z as fuck. In the best way possible. That's a compliment.
Yeah, Ben is 19 years old, from Delaware, currently a college student, very outgoing, very social. He goes through these cycles where he is outgoing and social, and then he becomes super introverted. And then that's where these games kind of kick into gear, because while he's being introverted in his normal life, he can, be recluse in his room, but then play these online games. So it's kind of like this balance in a way. But the crazy thing is just hearing his previous games, hearing the way he deals with things. I fully expect Ben to bring a very, very chaotic energy to this game. He is self-proclaimed as a very, emotional player, but impulsive. This is something I probably shouldn't say. I don't see Ben winning the game.
Ooh.
But that's not to say he can't. But I imagine by the end of the season, you will know Ben's name.
Yeah. Yes. In quotes, because he said this, impulsive, borderline chaotic. And so I was like, that is wonderful. And this is another one of those situations where I'm not sure if the strategy and experience will translate to a mini. because he did share a story of, the votes were on him that day, and he spent all day going to each individual person saying, don't do this, we should do something else. And he convinced enough people to get out of it. You have 15 minutes. You might not have that time. So I'm wondering if the, what they're used to and what he's used to get out of things is going to work here, especially the chaos energy, because, in a mini blood, as soon as blood hits the water, the sharks go for it. And if you give anyone any tiny drop of blood, they will take it and run with it. So the chaos angle might not work. I want to see it though, because it could. I mean, Lauren had some chaotic moments and I in a previous org, Matt was a little chaotic as well, and it worked. It has worked. So I would love to see it. Love to see it work out. I'd love to see him win with that type of energy and set a precedent.
Yeah, I think if you are saying Lauren brought chaotic energy, she is a firecracker, whereas he might be an atom bomb. So
yes.
I would love to continue to talk about Ben, but honestly, I think, at least from my perspective of things, what I had to say, I said it, and I'm putting emphasis on it. I think you will know his name, and let's just hope people don't hate him, but people thought he brought an entertaining game and love him.
Listen, even if he's messy, you love it. You know what I mean?
He could be a messy king.
I do have a few other things. So in the beginning, he talked about how he's not super emotional, and he goes in with kind of this mentality of like stringing people along almost. But then when you ask them to kind of self-describe, he says he's emotional. And I thought that was interesting. He was like, in the beginning, he was like, I'm not emotional. I go in and I just kind of like, I'm chaos energy. But then he was like, I'm very emotional. So I was like, so which is it? Are you not, or are you emotional? So I do think he will be an emotional player, but not detrimentally. And also, it's interesting that he also said he's a follower. So to me, like, these are some contradictory statements. Wow. Contradictory. I can't talk right now.
Contradictory.
Thank you. Statements like, I'm chaos energy and I love to string people along, but then I'm a follower and I'm very emotional. And so it's like interesting. Like, it's almost, I mean, he did say in the beginning he's very two different people in one, and that's Gemini energy, and I'm here for it. And so maybe that's the two personalities, contradicting each other throughout the interview. So interesting dynamic. We'll see if it works.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to move on to our fourth and final player that Collin and I will be discussing. We have Bloody. Yes, Bloody. We have Bloody. Bloody is 30 years old. I believe she sells as like a marketing person. She sells men's deodorant. She's from like the Discord side of things, and she also runs one of the biggest Survivor org Discords there is. She can be very emotional. I've literally seen confessionals of her before, where she's literally crying. She is a very smart person. She could probably be very calculating. She seems like she'd be super fun. She's easy to talk to. She is super talkative as well. It did not bother me. She had the longest interview at, I think, like 38 minutes or something like that.
It was 40 minutes.
40 minutes then. She also, very interesting enough, from the day we casted her up until about 3 days ago. So this is currently Friday, tomorrow's game day. Up until about 3 days ago, she was sending me detailed notes on every single episode of Prometheus. She watched all of season one during, and then she's doing it again, but she is studying the game. She's studying the players, what works, what doesn't work, the format, what type of questions we were asking at Tribal, and the challenges. And I believe she even practiced some of the challenges too, although I don't know if she was really expecting us to use all the same challenges for season 2.
Wow.
So I think, assuming she does not overplay her hand, she has the potential to make it very far. And I would just like to note too that every single person that interviewed for Prometheus, so that is whether or not they were casted, I did tell everyone the best sort of homework you can do for this season is to watch season 1. That is what I told everyone. I did not say anything more. I did not say anything less. So it doesn't matter if you're a new orger, if you are a pre-existing orger, if you had watched Prometheus prior or whatnot, everyone got the same advice. Bloody, though, is my second of 3 players who I think you need to watch out for this season. She gets that grade A, Casey certified, like seal of freshness, whatever you want to say. I have high hopes for her. I think she is my winner pick.
I'm gonna agree with you. This is her game to win. I don't want to be biased, but literally I have notes here, and at the top above everything, I just wrote, bitch, I'm intimidated. I'm not even playing this game, and I am intimidated as fuck. The level of just preparation Bloody has already at the time of the interview was astounding. Watching the show, making comments about the logo, the new logo for season 2, and what that possibly could mean for the game. Like making predictions just based solely on the change of the logo being green, having the tree, like that level of thought is like, I was like blown away, like studying the game, like, and learn from all of our mistakes, sure, but like, whoa. And just, I mean, obviously 40-minute interview, you know, there was a lot to unpack, but overall, just the amount of strategy and the way Bloody's mind works was so impressive. And I love that they were just kind of throwing it all out there too, like just like being honest, like this is what I do. And you know, the example that they gave was you know, making other people think, making them think I think I'm smart. And it's like that whole like manipulation of like, you're going to think that I'm really smart, but you think I'm actually dumb, but I'm actually really smart, and making you think that I'm stupid. And I was like, whoa, like there's so much layer of strategy and thought and manipulation going on that I was like, Bloody is the one to watch, because studying the game, picking up on subtle details, the strategy, the emotion, just the experience. Whoa, I'm like blown away.
Absolutely.
I mean, when I opened the file to watch, and I was like 40 minutes, but then I was like the whole time just like listening. Like and I loved the comment of the terrible performance in the memory challenges from season 1. And she was like, did no one write this shit down? And I was like, no, we didn't write this shit down. I didn't think to, because I'm stupid, all right? I did for day 2, but it didn't fucking help. So but again, self-proclaimed attributes. Interesting that follower emotional, and then passive and aggressive came up again. And the follower, to me, I was like, that's so interesting, because everything you were saying up until this point would allude leader to me, but then they say follower. So it's just an interesting kind of perception, I guess.
Yeah. And, you know, one thing I will say that I do fear about Bloody, or 2 things really. One, and this is sometimes what happens with super fans of something. And I'm not necessarily saying Bloody is a super fan of Prometheus, but maybe I am saying she's a fan or a super fan. But the thing is sometimes when these people finally play, they're so in their head with all this knowledge, and they become this game bot, and then they fumble. Now, I don't think, and this camera's driving me insane, it keeps having trouble focusing. But anyway, I fear that that could potentially be a thing with Bloody. I don't think it will, but it could be.
I could see it.
But the second thing that I actually do think might be more of an issue and be on people's minds is the fact that her name is fucking Bloody. What is more intimidating than that? Hi, I'm Bloody. What? Your name's what? Bloody. Like,
I'm
he
scared.
sounds like, yeah. But
I
that
live in
could also whip
Ireland,
people
and
in
I'm
shape.
scared.
It could whip people in shape, but it could also be like, oh, yo, this girl's got a nickname and it's fucking bloody. There's probably a reason why we need to get her out now. So
Well,
the nickname is, I love it, but it could potentially really screw her.
that's true. And you know, again, I'm on the Facebook org side, and you know, there's a lot of people that aren't on the Facebook org side, so I don't know if they know of her, and that could be an issue. You know what I mean? Because she is part of, you know, a really, you know, well-known Discord org. So, you know, if someone knows that reputation and they can convince enough people to, you know, hey, like again, blood in the water. If they need an excuse, there's an excuse, and they'll do it. So that could also happen. It could. I either feel like Bloody will be like first 2 rounds or win. Like, it's like, to me, I'm like, if you make it to, like, I don't know. I mean, again, these are all predictions. We'll see what happens over the weekend. But like, I was just blown away about the level of detail of sharing of the game from season 1 that she watched already. And I believe she has a connection to Joe.
Oh yeah, I forgot how we didn't talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously, you know, commented on Caro and Lauren's gameplay, which so again studied the game.
Yeah, and I believe that was all those comments were just based off of a first watch that was happening as it was airing.
2 watches, and like, if anyone's watching this now who hasn't seen season 1, shame on you, go watch it. But it's not like a day binge. It's like hours of content. Like, each episode is like 30 to an hour sometimes. So it's not like you're gonna just like, you know, it's not like 10-minute bites. It's like actual like TV episodes. So like to do 2 watches is commitment. I mean,
yeah.
And that, to me, if you put in that groundwork, I think that goes really far. You know what I mean? Like, if you put in so much, but again, like you said, you could get too much into your head. But I think in this situation, she's put so much thought and groundwork into it that it will pay off. I mean, I hope it pays off. There's so much prep.
I mean, I wish every contestant the best of luck. I truly, truly, truly do. But I do think that Bloody has set herself up to do well. And for some people, this is just a fun little game.
Yeah. Well, now we have high expectations. So Bloody, good luck.
Yeah. But on that note, do you have any final comments, any final thoughts before we conclude?
I don't. I just wish everyone the best of luck. And that sounded really ominous, and I don't know why. It wasn't meant to be, but good luck.
All right. Well, thank you, Collin, for coming on, and we're going to move on to our next co-host. All right, and we are now here with our second co-host for this podcast, Josh. Josh, how you doing today, man?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Doing well. So, camera went a little blurry there for a second. So, we're here to talk about the next 4 people for season 2 of Prometheus. So, let's just start off with CJ. I'll give a little intro, Josh, and then I'll allow for you to discuss your thoughts.
Sure.
So, CJ is 26 years old. He was originally from the Philippines, but within the past probably about 5 years, he moved to Canada with his family. He's a software developer. He loves traveling. He did host at one point, I don't think he does anymore, but he did host a singing competition. And I think he would kind of edit some of the vocals and the videos to kind of create this like little production, which is kind of cool. But he hasn't played too many games, and I don't think overall he's done very well, but his very first game that he played, he actually did win. I'm very curious to see how he will do this season. I think he has the potential to make it pretty far into the game. Even one of our other production members, when they saw his interview, very much liked, I guess, the social part of what they're interpreting as his game. And I think that is probably going to be his strength, is the social game. But, you know, it's really hard to tell what any of these people are going to be like. So, yeah, what's your thoughts on CJ there?
No, I would honestly have to agree 100%. And, you know, he was born in the Philippines, but he's definitely Canadian. I consider him a Canadian. He's been in Canada for 5 years, so I will be rooting for him. 120% as a fellow Canadian. And just based on the interview that I saw, he seems to be like a very charismatic kind of guy, very smiley, very like positive. Seems like the kind of guy people gravitate towards too. But I was also getting the vibe that he also seems like the type of person that will have no problem stabbing you in the back and then smiling about it the next day. So I can see that happening for sure, and we'll see if that gets him in trouble or not. Whether he makes it far, I definitely do think he can go far. I think people will catch on, though, to his social prowess. So as long as he keeps that threat level minimal and tries to kind of stay kind of behind the scenes, at least in the first half, I think he definitely has potential to go far. Whether it's final three or what, I'm not sure, but yeah, for sure, I can see him going far.
Yeah. One thing I do worry, and I'll kind of end it on this note, unless you have something more to say about CJ, is that especially given his track record and, you know, some of the stuff that he was talking about in his interview, I almost, although I wish everyone the best of luck, I almost get the feeling that he might be a late day one boot. That is my guess. I wish everyone the best of luck, but I'm just looking at his track record and seeing if maybe he can play a more evolved game. I know he likes to use kind of the flirt card as part of his social game. And so if he keeps it light enough, it might carry him far. But if he does get cutthroat about it and then smiles after the fact, it could be that, and he could be an end of day one boot. Yeah.
One other thing I wanted to mention, it was interesting. He did kind of give him the self-title as the kind of the idol hoarder. Like he loves grabbing it. He says he's very good at finding idols and advantages and things like that. And who knows what Prometheus season 2 has in store, but if, you know, just based off history, if we know anything about based off Prometheus season 1, his idol prowess won't really benefit him in this game. So we'll see what he has to do about that.
All right, so moving on to our next contestant, we have ERIN. ERIN is 32 years old. She's a program director at a nonprofit. She's married. She has a cat. Her cat was constantly in and out of the interview.
Can't relate to that.
She loves board games, strategy games. She seems really nice and very overall soft-spoken. She's only played one game prior, and I don't think she made it too far. I'd have to double check, but I don't think she made it too far. But she thinks she'll be good with also memory and puzzle competitions, which we know we have a fair amount in Prometheus. I think I worry that if she is not at least a little bit socially aggressive, she could potentially just be seen as like someone to boot in the early part of the game. But this season, I feel like we've casted a fair amount of heroes, anti-heroes, and villains this season. So if she can get in everyone's good graces and everyone really likes her, I think she can make it far on that alone. And who knows, if she makes it to the end, it could be a Russell type season. The villains get bashed and then she ends up winning. So I'm very curious about her because I'm not 100% sure how she will pan out, but those are just some of my thoughts. What did you think?
Yeah, it's hard to put a kind of finger on her, but you know what? She is a program director, which is interesting. And I think that kind of job title if she kind of uses her, I've never been a program director, so what do I know? But what I believe a program director is, if she uses those qualities, those kind of skills she has as a program director in her everyday job and kind of correlates that into the org setting, I think she could be successful. You know, as a program director, you got to delegate tasks, you got to see your vision, you kind of got to watch it come to fruition by kind of delegating tasks. So if she's able to kind of stand in the back a little bit and kind of delegate, you know, she has potential, especially if she can, you know, get behind a kind of strong core, maybe 2-3 people in her alliance that are loyal to the soil with her. You know, I definitely see her having potential, but yeah, kind of hard to say with her.
Yeah, actually, that's a very interesting point, though. I never quite thought about that, but you know, the fact that she does do that, she could potentially be probably an early leader in this game. It's just that, once again, it's just a matter of whether or not, because I mean, that's definitely something.
Yeah, you know what,
at first, she said program director, and I was like, oh, maybe this girl's going to be like this alpha woman, which I'd love to see. But kind of just based on her interview, she kind of did seem a little bit more reserved, a little bit more laid back, which is, no problem too. So, yeah, I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I never quite thought about that. But you know what? There are many different types of leaders. There are many different types of, power players. I think oftentimes when people think of a leader or a power player, they do often think of someone who is going to, in the traditional sense, take charge and be aggressive. But there are other ways to lead. And so, and that could be very interesting. We could potentially see a new type of leader emerge in this game. And I'm not going to get into the mechanics of this new season because everyone will see once they watch the first episode. But with this new mechanic, maybe she could potentially step into a position of power. But I'll kind of leave my notes on ERIN at that.
Yeah, I'd agree.
All right, so we're now going to move into our next person, which is Jeffrey. So Jeffrey and I, we did his interview a little bit after the fact. I know Jeffrey. So I've also talked to him leading up to his interview and during the whole casting process as well. Jeffrey's 26 years old. He works as a bar back and a coach. He actually does a lot of volunteer work. He's helped with Special Olympics. He has helped with like special needs prom and like all that kind of stuff. So he does, really good work that way. He is actually related. This is the second player in the cast now that is related to a season 1 player. Jeffrey is related to CJ, who was the first boot of Prometheus in season 1. So let's see if Jeffrey can do better than CJ.
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what? If I'm being perfectly honest, he didn't necessarily give off the strongest vibes to me. He did give off someone who I would root for, someone who I would like to see succeed. I just don't necessarily see it happening. He seems like he's very competitive, which is great to see. I love to see the competitiveness. He seems very aggressive too, which, can sometimes bite you in the back. So I think maybe he's got to watch it between the competitiveness and the aggressive. I wasn't getting the best social vibes from him. I'll be honest. I'm not sure how I hope he can make the social connections, but if he's not able to, I wouldn't be surprised. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if he was a pre-merge boot, but I mean, I'd love to be proven wrong.
Yeah, I could definitely see Jeffrey panning out probably one of 3 ways. Either he makes it very far into day 2, he's a late day 1 boot, or he's a very early day 1 boot. The thing is, like I said, I do know Jeffrey, and same thing with CJ. I knew CJ from season 1, and the both of them are actually very social people. They have a ton of friends. They have no issue talking to many different people of all different backgrounds and ages in their life. I think both Jeffrey I think Jeffrey in this interview, it came down to, I had already talked to him about a lot of the stuff. And so maybe he doesn't interview well, but I'm telling you, he really can talk to a lot of people. And I've known him for a while. He is
I'd love to see it.
Very competitive. Definitely when he was younger, sometimes his competitiveness could tread the line of being a bit of a sore loser. But I mean, he's an athlete. He's been an athlete for years, up until somewhat recently when he got an injury and he stopped playing on his college football team. But I'm very curious to see what Jeffrey does. If he can just kind of figure out how this game is supposed to go early on, I think he can make the social connections necessary and, get those wins under his belt that he needs to potentially go far.
Does he have any org experience?
He does not. No, about a third of our cast to 40% of our cast is new to orgs.
Okay, well, no, that's great. A lot of newbies. Love to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. They potentially bring something very fresh into, especially a game where sometimes some of these games can host a lot of prior connections and stuff like that. So I'm very curious to see what Jeffrey will bring to the table. But moving on to our final cast member or final player, we have Jenny. Jenny's 27 years old. She is working her way through the film industry, I believe, hoping to become, actor, director, but I think more specifically, she's focusing on the producing side right now. She's very social. She's bubbly. She's generally considered to be a very nice person. She has only played one other game before, and she actually came, the whole reason I ended up actually reaching out to her was because she came highly recommended from the Havoc community. They absolutely loved her. They said all of her social interactions with her cast members just kind of left them always smiling and laughing. They just loved to see her interactions. And ultimately, she was, I believe, a late pre-merge boot in Havoc, but it had to do with her messing up her social game, I believe, in the beginning. And then at a later point, because of her early mess up, her name was constantly on the chopping block until it was time for her to, be sent out the door, which is similar to an extent with how Kyle did it in season 1. He probably didn't play the strongest social game and his name was on the chopping block, but it got to a point where he managed to do the right things that he needed to do. Maybe not the strongest game, and he made it to the end. But anyway, we're talking about Jenny. So what are your thoughts on Jenny?
I love Jenny. I'm going to be rooting for her hard from the get-go. She's going to be my number one, I think. What I do love about Jenny is she seems very self-aware of where she messed up on her previous org experience. It seems like she's kind of been able to dissect that a little bit, which I love to see. After each of my org games, I try to do that to the best of my ability. So she understands where she went wrong. And I can see her working really hard to improve that. She seems to have the whole package. She seems to be bubbly, social. She seems to be, like you said, like the Havoc community really seemed to gravitate towards her. So she's able to kind of pinpoint where her flaws were in her previous game. I can see her going far in Prometheus season 2. And what I do, specifically love about Jenny is that her and I are both in an elite club. We're both 13th place Havoc club. She was the most recent 13th place Havoc boot, and I was the previous season 13th place Havoc boot. So when I was able to make that connection, I was like, all right, this is my girl. She's going to bring it home for us.
All right. Well, I mean, hopefully she does well. I'm very excited to see how she will play out. One thing that I do fear, though, is that sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes you have your first game and you get the grasp of how it's supposed to go. Mm-hmm. And then your second game, you try and fix your mistakes, but you overdo it. And so I think her social game, she needs to keep that the same. She knows not to mess up in the beginning I guess she thought that she was being active enough, but she was considered to be inactive compared to the rest. Right. So in terms of her other things, because she said she was maybe hoping to be more cutthroat in her second game, but let's hope she doesn't overdo it because I think if she continues on her normal social game, it'll give her the social capital to start making better strategic moves later in the game.
Yeah, I would agree for sure.
All right. So do you have any final thoughts on Jenny before we conclude today's podcast?
You know what? No, like I said, I hope she brings it home for us 13th place clubs. Havoc is a hard game, speaking from experience. So, 13th place, there's no shame in that. So, let's hope she can just build up from that.
All right. Well, you heard it here. Thank you to both Josh and Collin for coming on today. And we look forward to everyone watching the rest of the preseason podcast and the second season, which is going to be right around the corner by the time this podcast airs. So thank you once again. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And on that note, have a good day.